If you are new here, I would like to tell you that we upload a brand new English learning video every single day on this channel to help you improve your English faster and become a more confident speaker. In today's episode, you are going to practice everyday intermediate English conversations with me. And not only that, you will also learn how to talk about your day in English, using more advanced English phrases and natural vocabulary that fluent speakers use in real life. This lesson is specially designed to help you build your speaking confidence, step by step. We will explore daily life situations, real conversation examples, expressive sentence structures, and powerful vocabulary that'll help you sound more natural and more fluent when you speak English. As we move forward in this session, you will notice how small changes in your word choices can make your English sound more advanced. You will practice describing your routines, sharing your experiences, expressing emotions, explaining situations, and responding naturally in conversations, all in a calm, guided, easy-to-follow way. By the end of this video, you will feel more comfortable speaking about your daily life in English. You will know how to expand simple sentences into richer expressions, and you will gain the confidence to communicate like an advanced English speaker in everyday conversations. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss our daily English learning lessons designed to improve your fluency faster. So, take a deep breath, relax your mind, and if possible, grab a pen and paper to note down new phrases. Let's begin our English conversation practice journey together. As we begin today's conversation practice together, I want you to first settle into a comfortable learning rhythm. Take a slow breath, relax your shoulders, and allow your mind to shift into English thinking mode. Because fluency does not begin with speaking fast, it begins with thinking clearly. When you learn to describe your daily life in English using richer vocabulary and more expressive phrases, you naturally move from intermediate level toward advanced fluency. And that is exactly what we are going to practice together in this session. Let's start with one of the most natural and commonly used conversation topics in the world, talking about your day. It sounds simple at first, but when you go deeper, you realize it is one of the most powerful fluency-building exercises because it involves time expressions, emotions, routines, reactions, storytelling, and personal opinions, all combined in one natural flow of speech. Imagine someone asks you a very simple question: "How was your day?" Many intermediate learners respond with short, basic answers like, "It was good," or "It was busy," or "Nothing special." These responses are correct, but they do not reflect advanced fluency. An advanced speaker expands the response, adds color, adds feeling, adds context. For example, instead of saying, "My day was busy," you could say, "My day was quite hectic from the very beginning. I had multiple tasks to handle, and I barely had time to take a proper break." Notice how the second response paints a clearer picture. It sounds more expressive, more natural, and more fluent. Now let's practice this transformation together. I will give you a simple sentence first, and then we will expand it into a more advanced conversational response. Imagine you say, "I woke up late today." That is basic. Now let's expand it. You could say, "I actually overslept this morning. I must have turned off my alarm without realizing it." So my whole morning routine felt rushed and slightly chaotic. Can you feel the difference? The second version tells a story. It invites the listener into your experience. And that is the essence of advanced conversation. Not complexity, but descriptive clarity. Now let's move deeper into your morning routine, because mornings are filled with conversational opportunities. Think about how you usually begin your day. Do you wake up feeling energized, or do you struggle to get out of bed? An intermediate learner might say, I wake up at 7 and go to work. But an advanced conversational speaker might express it like this: I usually wake up around 7 a.m., though I often hit the snooze button once or twice before actually getting out of bed. After that, I like to freshen up slowly while mentally preparing myself for the day ahead. Let's practice together. Now, I want you to repeat after me, slowly, focusing on clarity and pronunciation. I usually wake up around 7 a.m., though I often hit the snooze button once or twice before actually getting out of bed. Good. Now let's extend the routine. After that, I make myself a cup of coffee and spend a few quiet moments planning my day. You see how natural that sounds? You are not memorizing complex grammar. You are simply learning how to expand everyday thoughts. Now let's imagine a slightly different morning scenario. Perhaps your morning felt productive. You could say, I had a surprisingly productive morning today. I managed to finish several pending tasks before noon, which gave me a strong sense of accomplishment early in the day. Notice phrases like surprisingly productive, pending tasks, sense of accomplishment. These are advanced conversational building blocks. Let's practice another variation. Imagine your morning felt slow and peaceful. You might say, my morning was calm and unhurried. I took my time getting ready, enjoyed my breakfast, and appreciated the quietness before the day became busy. Now I want you to personalize this. Speak aloud. My morning was, and complete the sentence with your real experience. Add emotion, add detail, add atmosphere. This is how fluency develops, through personalization, not memorization. As the day progresses, conversations often shift toward work, studies, or daily responsibilities. So, let's explore how to talk about your afternoon in a more advanced and expressive way. Instead of saying, I worked all day, you could say, my afternoon was fully occupied with work. I had back-to-back meetings and several deadlines to meet, so I barely had a moment to relax. Repeat after me. My afternoon was fully occupied with work. I had back-to-back meetings and several deadlines to meet. Excellent! Now let's try a different emotional tone. Maybe your afternoon felt exhausting. By the middle of the afternoon, I started to feel mentally drained. I had been concentrating for hours, and my energy levels began to drop significantly. Notice how phrases like mentally drained and energy levels dropped elevate your speech. Now let's imagine a positive scenario. My afternoon turned out to be quite rewarding. I completed an important project and received positive feedback from my manager. Again, repeat aloud, focusing on rhythm. My afternoon turned out to be quite rewarding. I completed an important project and received positive feedback. You are not just practicing speaking, you are training your conversational reflexes. Now let's move into casual daily interactions. Because conversations are not only about routines, they are about people. For example, talking about colleagues, classmates, or clients. Instead of saying, I talked to my coworker, you could express, I had an engaging conversation with one of my colleagues today. We exchanged ideas about an upcoming project, and it was genuinely inspiring. Or, if the interaction felt challenging, I had a slightly difficult discussion with a client this afternoon. There were a few misunderstandings, but we managed to resolve them professionally. Let's pause here for a speaking exercise. I want you to imagine one real interaction you had recently. Now describe it aloud using this structure. I had an interesting conversation with. We talked about. It made me feel. Take your time. Speak slowly. Expand naturally. This type of guided speaking builds conversational muscle memory. Now let's transition into evening conversations, because this is where storytelling becomes richer. Evenings often include relaxation, reflection, or social time. Instead of saying, I watch TV in the evening, you could say, in the evening, I finally had some time to unwind. I watched my favorite show and allowed myself to relax after a long day. Or, I spent my evening catching up on a series I've been following. It was a nice way to disconnect from work stress. Let's try another scenario. Social evening. I met a close friend for dinner last night. We hadn't seen each other in months, so we had a lot to catch up on. Repeat after me. We hadn't seen each other in months, so we had a lot to catch up on. Excellent. That phrase alone is extremely common in advanced conversation. Now let's practice emotional reflection, because advanced speakers often express feelings about their day. Instead of saying, I was tired, you might say, by the end of the day, I felt physically exhausted, but mentally satisfied with everything I had accomplished. Or, I felt emotionally drained after dealing with multiple stressful situations. Let's do a reflection exercise now. Say aloud, by the end of the day, I felt. And the reason was, add your real emotion, happiness, stress, relief, pride. This builds expressive fluency. Now I want to introduce a powerful advanced habit, narrative sequencing. This means describing your day like a story, with flow. Listen carefully. My day began on a slightly rushed note. I overslept and had to hurry through my morning routine. However, once I reached work, things gradually became more structured. I managed to complete my major tasks by the afternoon, and in the evening, I rewarded myself by spending some quiet time reading. Notice the connectors. However, gradually, by the afternoon, in the evening, these create conversational cohesion. Now you try. Speak your day as a story, beginning, middle, end. Take your time. Fluency grows in these moments. As you continue practicing, you will notice something important. Advanced English is not about difficult words. It is about detailed expression. It is the ability to expand simple experiences into meaningful descriptions. For example, instead of saying, I had lunch, you could say, I grabbed a quick lunch between meetings. It wasn't anything fancy, but it gave me the energy boost I needed to get through the rest of the day. Or, I treated myself to a relaxed lunch at my favorite cafe. It was a refreshing break from my routine. Now repeat. It was a refreshing break from my routine. That phrase is extremely useful in daily conversation. We will continue building more advanced daily expressions, exploring deeper conversational patterns, and practicing real-life speaking scenarios together, step by step, so that by the end of this session, talking about your day in English will feel natural, expressive, and confidently fluent. As you continue developing your conversational fluency, it becomes increasingly important to move beyond simply describing what happened and begin expressing how experiences affected you. Advanced speakers naturally combine events with reactions, thoughts, and subtle emotional reflections. This is what transforms everyday conversation into engaging communication. Let's continue building that ability together. Imagine someone asks you, "What did you do after work?" A basic reply might be, "I went home and rested." That is clear, but limited. Now listen to the expanded version. After work, I headed straight home because I was feeling quite drained. I needed some quiet time to recharge, so I stayed in, made myself a warm drink, and just relaxed for a while. Notice the layered expression. Headed straight home, feeling quite drained, quiet time to recharge. These phrases add emotional and situational depth. Let's practice together. Repeat aloud. After work, I headed straight home because I was feeling quite drained. Very good. Now extend it. I needed some quiet time to recharge, so I stayed in and relaxed for a while. This is how conversational expansion works. Now let's explore a different evening scenario. Imagine your evening was productive rather than restful. After work, I focused on personal tasks that I had been postponing. I organized my workspace, responded to pending messages, and planned my schedule for the upcoming week. Repeat slowly. I focused on personal tasks that I had been postponing. Excellent. This phrase sounds very natural in advanced daily conversation. Now let's shift towards social interactions again. Because daily, conversations often involve meeting people. Instead of saying, "I met my friend," you could say, "I caught up with an old friend in the evening. We hadn't spoken in quite some time, so it was refreshing to reconnect and share updates about our lives." Let's practice key phrases. Caught up with an old friend. Refreshing to reconnect. These expressions instantly elevate conversational fluency. Now, I want you to imagine a group interaction. Perhaps dinner with family. I spent the evening with my family. We shared a meal together, talked about our day, and enjoyed each other's company. Now, expand it further. It was comforting to spend quality time with them after such a demanding day. Repeat that. It was comforting to spend quality time with them. You see how emotional vocabulary enhances fluency? Now let's explore conversational storytelling, because intermediate speakers often struggle to narrate experiences smoothly. Advanced speakers use transitional language to maintain flow. Listen carefully. Later in the evening, I decided to go for a short walk. I felt the need to clear my mind after being indoors all day. The fresh air helped me relax, and by the time I returned home, I felt much lighter mentally. Notice the progression: decision, reason, experience, result. Now it's your turn. Speak aloud. Later in the evening, I decided to. I felt the need to. By the time I returned, I felt. This structure trains narrative fluency. Let's now talk about one of the most common conversation themes: stress and workload, because this appears frequently in real-life discussions. Instead of saying, I was stressed today. You could say, today felt particularly overwhelming. I had multiple responsibilities to juggle, and it required constant focus to keep everything on track. Repeat after me. I had multiple responsibilities to juggle. That phrase is widely used in professional conversation. Now let's soften the tone. Although the day was demanding, I managed to handle everything efficiently, which gave me a sense of relief by the end of the day. This contrast structure, stress followed by accomplishment, is common in advanced speech. Now imagine discussing studies instead of work. My afternoon was dedicated to studying. I reviewed my notes, worked on assignments, and prepared for upcoming exams. Let's elevate it. I spent the afternoon immersed in study, trying to absorb as much information as possible before my exams. Repeat. I spent the afternoon immersed in study. Excellent. Now let's practice describing unexpected events, because real conversations often include surprises. For example, something unexpected happened today. I ran into an old classmate while running errands. It was completely unplanned, but it turned into a delightful conversation. Repeat key phrase. It turned into a delightful conversation. Advanced speakers use words like delightful, memorable, amusing, refreshing. Now let's imagine a challenging, unexpected situation. My schedule was disrupted by an urgent issue at work. I had to shift my priorities quickly and deal with it immediately. Repeat. I had to shift my priorities quickly. Very useful professional phrase. Now, I want you to practice spontaneous narration. Think about something unexpected that happened to you recently. Now describe it aloud using this flow. Something unexpected happened when, at first, I felt, but eventually, it turned out. This strengthens adaptive speaking skills. Let's now move into emotional vocabulary development, because talking about your day also means talking about your feelings. Instead of saying, I was happy, you might say, I felt genuinely uplifted today, especially after receiving encouraging feedback. Or instead of, I was nervous, I felt slightly anxious before my presentation, but once I started speaking, my confidence gradually improved. Repeat after me. My confidence gradually improved. Beautifully natural phrase. Now let's explore conversational reflection at night. This is when people summarize their day internally or in conversation. Before going to bed, I reflected on how the day went. I thought about what I accomplished and what I could improve tomorrow. Repeat. I reflected on how the day went. Reflection vocabulary is essential for advanced fluency. Now, let's extend it. Even though the day had its challenges, I felt grateful for the progress I made. Repeat slowly. I felt grateful for the progress I made. Gratitude language adds emotional sophistication. Let's practice another reflective variation. As I was winding down for the night, I realized how much I had learned from the day's experiences. Repeat. As I was winding down for the night. This is a highly natural evening expression. Now I want you to combine everything we practiced so far into one flowing narrative. Speak aloud, slowly. My day started. In the afternoon. Later in the evening. By the end of the day, I felt. Do not rush. Allow your thoughts to form in English. This is how you transition from intermediate to advanced fluency. As you continue listening and repeating, your brain begins storing conversational templates. ready to use in real situations. In the next phase of our practice, we will begin expanding vocabulary even further, introducing expressive idiomatic phrases, nuanced emotional descriptions, and situational conversation patterns that advanced speakers rely on daily. As we continue moving deeper into your everyday English conversation practice, I want you to begin noticing how your speech becomes more fluid when you combine vocabulary with emotional nuance. This stage of fluency development is where intermediate learners start sounding more natural, more confident, and more socially expressive because they are no longer just describing events, they are interpreting experiences. Let's begin this phase by focusing on transitional moments in your day, those small in-between periods that often go unspoken, yet are extremely common in real conversations. For example, instead of saying, "After lunch, I worked again," you could express, "After lunch, it took me a little while to get back into a productive rhythm. I felt slightly sluggish at first, but once I refocused, I managed to regain my momentum." Repeat after me. It took me a little while to get back into a productive rhythm. This phrase is widely used in workplace and academic conversations. Now let's try a different variation. After lunch, I felt re-energized and ready to tackle the rest of my responsibilities. Repeat. I felt re-energized and ready to tackle the rest of my responsibilities. You see how descriptive verbs like tackle instantly elevate fluency. Now let's explore commuting conversations, because transportation experiences are extremely common in daily English discussions. Instead of saying, "I went home by bus," you could say, "My commute back home was longer than usual today. There was heavy traffic, and it gave me time to reflect on how the day had unfolded." Repeat slowly. My commute back home was longer than usual. Now a more positive commuting experience. The journey home was surprisingly pleasant. I listened to music, watched the city lights, and allowed myself to mentally unwind. Repeat. I allowed myself to mentally unwind. That phrase is highly natural and emotionally expressive. Let's practice another commuting scenario. I ran into a minor delay during my commute, but I used the extra time to catch up on messages and organize my thoughts. Repeat. I used the extra time to catch up on messages. Excellent. Now let's transition into describing physical and mental energy levels, because advanced speakers frequently communicate how they feel physically, not just emotionally. Instead of saying, "I was tired," you could express, "I felt physically drained after such a long day. My energy levels were noticeably low by the evening." Repeat. My energy levels were noticeably low. Now a contrasting positive energy expression. Despite the workload, I felt surprisingly energized throughout the day, which helped me stay productive. Repeat. I felt surprisingly energized throughout the day. Energy vocabulary is essential in advanced conversation. Now let's explore multitasking, a very common modern life topic. Instead of saying, "I did many things," try, "I found myself juggling multiple tasks simultaneously, switching between responsibilities without much pause." Repeat. Juggling multiple tasks simultaneously. That phrase is extremely valuable in professional English. Now let's soften the intensity. Although I had several things to manage, I approached them one step at a time, which made everything feel more manageable. Repeat. I approached them one step at a time. Excellent pacing phrase. Let's now talk about productivity satisfaction, because many conversations involve discussing achievements. Instead of saying, I finished my work, you might say, I managed to wrap up all my major responsibilities by late afternoon, which gave me a strong sense of fulfillment. Repeat. I managed to wrap up all my major responsibilities. Very fluent expression. Now let's deepen the reflection. There's something deeply satisfying about ending the day knowing you've been productive. Repeat. There's something deeply satisfying about ending the day. This adds philosophical tone to conversation. Now we'll move into vocabulary for interruptions, because real life rarely flows smoothly. Instead of saying, my work stopped, try, my workflow was interrupted several times, which made it difficult to maintain concentration. Repeat. My workflow was interrupted several times. Now let's practice resilience language. Even though my schedule kept getting disrupted, I remained focused and completed what I needed to. Repeat. I remained focused despite the disruptions. This shows emotional control in speech. Now let's shift toward technology-related daily conversations, extremely relevant in modern English. Instead of saying, I checked my phone, you could say, I spent some time catching up on notifications, responding to messages, and reviewing important updates. Repeat. I spent some time catching up on notifications. Now a reflective variation. I realized I had been glued to my screen for hours, so I decided to disconnect for a while. Repeat. I decided to disconnect for a while. That phrase is widely used in lifestyle conversations. Let's now practice describing learning activities, since many conversations involve self-improvement. Instead of saying, I studied English, try, I dedicated some time to improving my English skills today, focusing on vocabulary expansion and conversational fluency. Repeat. I dedicated some time to improving my English skills. Now expand it. I practiced speaking aloud, recorded my voice, and listened back to identify areas for improvement. Repeat. I listened back to identify areas for improvement. Excellent advanced phrasing. Now let's explore emotional micro-moments, small feelings that happen during the day. For example, I felt a brief moment of frustration when things didn't go as planned, but I quickly regained my composure. Repeat. I quickly regained my composure. Very advanced emotional control phrase. Now a positive micro-moment. I experienced a small burst of motivation after completing an important task. Repeat. A small burst of motivation. These descriptive practices enrich storytelling. Let's now combine emotional and situational fluency into a longer narrative practice. Listen first. My day unfolded in an interesting way. It began with a sense of urgency, transitioned into steady productivity by the afternoon, and concluded with a calm, reflective evening. Repeat slowly. My day unfolded in an interesting way. This phrase is extremely sophisticated yet natural. Now you try your own version. My day unfolded. It began with. It transitioned into. It concluded with. Take your time. Speak freely. Now let's explore vocabulary for decision-making, another key daily conversation topic. Instead of saying, I decided to rest, try, I made a conscious decision to slow down and prioritize rest. Repeat. I made a conscious decision to slow down. Now, productivity-focused decision. I chose to use my free time productively rather than scrolling aimlessly. Repeat. I chose to use my free time productively. Decision language reflects maturity in fluency. Let's now move toward night routines, where conversations often become calmer and reflective. Instead of saying, I went to bed, you could say, as the night settled in, I began down, preparing myself mentally for rest. Repeat. I began winding down. Now extend it. I put my devices aside, dimmed the lights, and allowed my mind to gradually relax. Repeat. I allowed my mind to gradually relax. Beautifully calming expression. Now reflective closing narrative practice. Before drifting off to sleep, I replayed moments from the day in my mind, appreciating the progress I had made. Repeat. Before drifting off to sleep. That phrase carries poetic fluency. Now I want you to practice a full-day advanced reflection aloud. Today was. One moment that stood out was. I felt. And tomorrow, I hope to. This builds forward-looking conversational ability. As we continue ahead, we will begin integrating idiomatic expressions, conversational metaphors, and more socially dynamic dialogue patterns. So your daily English conversations become not only fluent, but also vivid, engaging, and authentically expressive. As your conversational fluency continues to expand, it becomes increasingly valuable to integrate idiomatic language into your daily speech. Because idioms are one of the defining markers that separate intermediate speakers from advanced communicators. They add personality, cultural familiarity, and conversational depth. Let's begin gently, integrating idioms into everyday life narration. Imagine you want to describe a very busy morning. Instead of simply saying, I was very busy, you could say, my morning was absolutely packed. I was running around trying to get everything done before noon. Repeat after me. My morning was absolutely packed. Now let's elevate it further. I hit the ground running today. From the moment I woke up, I was already dealing with responsibilities. Repeat. I hit the ground running today. This idiom means starting the day with immediate activity, and it sounds very natural in professional and casual conversations. Now let's explore a situation where things didn't go as planned. Instead of saying, my plans failed, you might say, my plans fell through at the last minute, so I had to improvise quickly. Repeat. My plans fell through. Very common conversational idiom. Let's try another one related to workload. I had so much to do today. I barely had time to breathe. Repeat. I barely had time to breathe. This exaggeration idiom communicates intensity. Now let's soften the tone and describe a smooth day. Everything went smoothly today. It felt like I was finally getting back into the swing of things. Repeat. Getting back into the swing of things. This idiom means returning to a comfortable routine. Now let's explore emotional idioms. Instead of saying, I was nervous, you could say, I had butterflies in my stomach before my presentation. Repeat. I had butterflies in my stomach. Very expressive emotional idiom. Now, let's describe relief. When the meeting ended, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Repeat. A weight had been lifted off my shoulders. This expresses emotional release. Let's now practice integrating idioms into full daily narratives. Listen carefully. Today was intense. I hit the ground running in the morning, dealt with unexpected challenges throughout the afternoon, but by the evening, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Repeat the sequence slowly. I hit the ground running. Unexpected challenges came up. A weight had been lifted off my shoulders. This layering of idioms adds fluency texture. Now, let's transition into workplace conversational dialogue patterns, because advanced speakers often describe communication dynamics. Instead of saying, "My boss was happy," you could express, "My manager seemed quite pleased with my progress, which boosted my confidence significantly." Repeat, "It boosted my confidence significantly." Now, a constructive criticism scenario. My supervisor pointed out a few areas for improvement, but the feedback was constructive and encouraging. Repeat, "The feedback was constructive and encouraging." This phrase is highly professional. Let's now explore teamwork vocabulary. I collaborated closely with my team today. We brainstormed ideas, shared perspectives, and worked toward a common goal. Repeat, we worked toward a common goal. Now let's integrate idioms into teamwork. Everyone pulled their weight, which made the entire process more efficient. Repeat, everyone pulled their weight. This idiom means everyone contributed fairly. Now let's practice describing challenging teamwork. At times it felt like we weren't on the same page, but eventually we aligned our ideas. Repeat, we weren't on the same page. Common collaboration idiom. Now let's move into productivity versus procrastination, a frequent conversation topic. Instead of saying, "I delayed my work," try, "I kept putting off an important task, even though I knew it needed to be done." Repeat, "I kept putting off an important task." Now describe overcoming procrastination. Eventually, I decided to tackle it head-on, and once I started, it wasn't as difficult as I had imagined. Repeat, I decided to tackle it head-on. Excellent fluency idiom. Now let's explore motivation language. I felt a surge of motivation after completing my first task, and it carried me through the rest of the day. Repeat, a surge of motivation. Now, emotional resilience. Even when things became overwhelming, I reminded myself to stay grounded and focused. Repeat, I reminded myself to stay grounded. This shows emotional maturity in speech. Let's now practice describing social energy. Instead of saying, "I talked a lot," you could say, "I was in a particularly social mood today," engaging in conversations whenever the opportunity arose. Repeat, I was in a particularly social mood. Now contrast with introverted energy. I didn't feel very talkative today. I preferred to keep to myself and conserve my energy. Repeat, I preferred to keep to myself. Energy expression is crucial in daily conversation. Now let's shift toward describing environment and atmosphere. Instead of saying, "The office was busy," you might say, "The office was buzzing with activity. Everyone seemed fully immersed in their work." Repeat, "The office was buzzing with activity." Now a calm atmosphere. The environment felt unusually shant and focused, which helped me concentrate better. Repeat, the environment felt calm and focused. Atmosphere vocabulary enriches storytelling. Let's now practice conversational comparison. Compared to yesterday, today felt far more manageable and organized. Repeat, far more manageable and organized. Now, future-oriented comparison. I hope tomorrow will be a bit less hectic than today. Repeat. A bit less hectic. Expectation language is common in daily dialogue. Now let's integrate everything into an extended, advanced narrative. Listen first. Today felt like a balancing act. I hit the ground running in the morning, juggled multiple responsibilities throughout the afternoon, and by evening, I was ready to unwind. Even though it was demanding, it felt rewarding to know that everyone pulled their weight and we achieved our goals. Repeat with me. Today felt like a balancing act. I juggled multiple responsibilities. We achieved our goals. Now it's your turn to build your own. Speak aloud. Today felt like. In the morning, throughout the afternoon, by the evening, take your time. Speak fluidly. As we continue forward, we will begin integrating more spontaneous conversational reactions, opinion-based expressions, and situational dialogue simulations, allowing you to not only describe your day, but actively converse about it in dynamic, real-life interactions. As your fluency continues evolving, the next conversational layer we need to strengthen is your ability to express opinions, reactions, and interpretations about your daily experiences, because advanced speakers rarely just describe events, they evaluate them, reflect on them, and respond to them with personal insight. Let's begin with opinion-based reflections about your day. Instead of saying, "Today was good," you could express, "Overall, I would say today was quite fulfilling. I managed to stay productive while also finding moments to relax." Repeat after me. Overall, I would say today was quite fulfilling. This phrase is extremely useful when summarizing your day in conversation. Now, let's explore a slightly mixed emotional reflection. To be honest, today had its ups and downs. Some moments felt stressful, but others were genuinely rewarding. Repeat. Today had its ups and downs. This idiomatic phrase reflects emotional balance. Now, let's deepen your reaction vocabulary. Instead of saying, "I liked my day," you might say, "I found today surprisingly enjoyable, especially the moments when I could step away from work and reset mentally." Repeat. I found today surprisingly enjoyable. Now contrast it with a more difficult day. If I'm being honest, today felt mentally exhausting. I had to stay focused for extended periods without much rest. Repeat. Today felt mentally exhausting. Reaction language adds conversational authenticity. Now let's explore situational evaluation. Instead of saying, "My meeting was long," try, "The meeting felt longer than expected, though it was productive in the end." Repeat. Though it was productive in the end. This contrast structure is widely used in advanced dialogue. Now, a more critical reflection. The discussion could have been more efficient, but at least we clarified key issues. Repeat. At least we clarified key issues. This shows diplomatic communication. Let's now practice expressing satisfaction. I felt quite satisfied with how I handled my responsibilities today. Repeat. I felt quite satisfied with how I handled my responsibilities. Now, deeper pride expression. I took pride in completing tasks that I had been postponing. Repeat. I took pride in completing tasks. Now let's explore disappointment language. I was slightly disappointed that I couldn't finish everything I had planned. Repeat. I was slightly disappointed. Now resilience follow-up. But I reminded myself that progress matters more than perfection. Repeat. Progress matters more than perfection. Beautiful motivational conversational phrase. Let's now move into spontaneous conversational reactions. Imagine someone responds to your day story. Advanced speakers naturally react using expressive microphrases. For example, that sounds intense. That must have been exhausting. I can imagine how stressful that felt. Repeat these aloud. I can imagine how stressful that felt. Now, empathetic responses. I'm glad it worked out in the end. That must have been a relief. Repeat. That must have been a relief. These reactions make conversations interactive, not one-sided. Now let's practice extended conversational exchange simulation. I will narrate both sides, and you repeat the target speaker lines. Person A says, "How was your day?" You respond, "My day was quite demanding, but also productive. I had several responsibilities to handle, and although it felt overwhelming at times, I managed to stay on track." Repeat slowly. Although it felt overwhelming at times, I managed to stay on track. Now, person A asks, "What was the most challenging part?" You reply, "Maintaining my focus throughout the afternoon was probably the toughest part. I felt mentally drained, but I pushed through." Repeat. I pushed through. Short but powerful resilience phrase. Now, person A asks, "What did you do afterward?" You respond, "After everything was done, I allowed myself some time to unwind. I watched something light and just relaxed." Repeat. I allowed myself some time to unwind. Excellent natural phrasing. Now let's move into describing learning moments from your day. Instead of saying, "I learned something," try, "Today taught me the importance of staying organized. I realized how much smoother things go when you plan ahead." Repeat. Today taught me the importance of staying organized. Now, personal growth reflection. I also learned that taking short breaks can significantly improve productivity. Repeat. Taking short breaks can significantly improve productivity. Now let's explore expressing gratitude. I felt grateful for the support I received from my colleagues today. Repeat. I felt grateful for the support I received. Gratitude expressions deepen conversational warmth. Now, a broader gratitude reflection. Moments like these remind me not to take progress for granted. Repeat. Not to take progress for granted. Now let's practice describing challenges as learning experiences. Even the stressful moments taught me valuable lessons about patience and adaptability. Repeat. Valuable lessons about patience and adaptability. Now we move into advanced storytelling layering, combining events, reactions, and reflections. Listen carefully. Looking back on the day, I realize how much I managed to accomplish despite the pressure. It wasn't easy, but it was meaningful, and that made it worthwhile. Repeat key phrases. Looking back on the day, that made it worthwhile. Now you try a reflection aloud. Looking back on my day. One thing I'm proud of is. One thing I would improve is. This builds self-reflective fluency. Now let's integrate opinion idioms. At first, I thought the day would be overwhelming, but it turned out to be manageable after all. Repeat. It turned out to be manageable after all. Now, a stronger idiomatic evaluation. All things considered, I'd say it was a productive day. Repeat. All things considered. Extremely common advanced summary phrase. Now let's expand it. All things considered, I feel satisfied with how everything unfolded. Repeat. How everything unfolded. Narrative evaluation language. Now let's move into future-oriented conversational closure, because people often end daily conversations by talking about tomorrow. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be another busy day, but I feel better prepared now. Repeat. I feel better prepared now. Now, optimistic projection. I'm hoping tomorrow will be a bit more balanced, with time to focus and time to relax. Repeat. A bit more balanced. Future anticipation language completes daily storytelling. Let's now combine everything into one extended advanced response. If I had to sum up my day, I'd say it was demanding yet fulfilling. I faced a few unexpected challenges, but I learned valuable lessons, and I'm proud of how I handled everything. Repeat slowly. If I had to sum up my day, I'm proud of how I handled everything. This is advanced conversational closure. As we continue forward, we will begin practicing longer dialogue simulations, deeper emotional storytelling, and spontaneous conversational thinking, helping you respond naturally without hesitation, just like an advanced fluent English speaker. As your fluency continues expanding, we now move into one of the most transformative stages of conversational development: spontaneous thinking and extended response building. This is where many intermediate learners hesitate because they know vocabulary, they know grammar, but they struggle to sustain conversation naturally without pauses. So in this phase, we will train your ability to think aloud in English, to expand ideas in real time, and to keep conversations flowing smoothly without feeling mentally blocked. Let's begin with spontaneous response extension. Imagine someone asks you, "What was the most interesting part of your day?" Instead of giving a short answer like, "My meeting," you could expand naturally like this: "The most interesting part of my day was a brainstorming session we had in the afternoon. Everyone brought unique perspectives, and it led to some creative solutions I hadn't considered before." Repeat after me. It led to some creative solutions I hadn't considered before. Now let's practice extending further. I always find discussions like that stimulating because they challenge the way I think. Repeat. They challenge the way I think. You see how one answer evolves into layered conversation. Now let's try another spontaneous question. What made you smile today? An advanced response might be, "What made me smile today was a small moment during lunch. A colleague shared a funny story, and it lightened the mood instantly." Repeat. It lightened the mood instantly. Now extend it emotionally. It reminded me how important simple moments of laughter are during a busy day. Repeat. Simple moments of laughter. This is reflective expansion. Now let's explore describing problem-solving situations. Instead of saying, "I fixed a problem," you could express, "I encountered a technical issue today that required immediate attention. At first, it seemed complicated, but after analyzing it step by step, I managed to resolve it." Repeat. After analyzing it step by step. Now, emotional follow-up. It felt incredibly satisfying to find a solution under pressure. Repeat. To find a solution under pressure. Problem-solving narratives are common in professional dialogue. Let's now practice describing time pressure. I was working against the clock for most of the afternoon, trying to meet an important deadline. Repeat. I was working against the clock. Now, outcome reflection. Thankfully, I completed everything just in time. Repeat. Just in time. Short but powerful fluency phrase. Now let's explore describing mental states during work. There were moments when I felt mentally overwhelmed, but I reminded myself to take things one step at a time. Repeat. I reminded myself to take things one step at a time. Now resilience extension. That mindset helped me stay composed even during stressful moments. Repeat. It helped me stay composed. Mental control vocabulary signals advanced fluency. Let's now move into describing collaboration dynamics in conversation form. Instead of saying, "We worked together," you could say, "My team and I worked closely throughout the day, supporting each other and sharing responsibilities." Repeat. Supporting each other and sharing responsibilities. Now, conflict resolution. There was a minor disagreement at one point, but we handled it respectfully and reached a mutual understanding. Repeat. We reached a mutual understanding. This is high-level professional communication. Now let's practice describing learning through mistakes. I made a small error earlier today, but it turned into a valuable learning opportunity. Repeat. A valuable learning opportunity. Now reflective extension. It reminded me that growth often comes from imperfections. Repeat. Growth often comes from imperfections. This philosophical tone enriches conversation. Let's now explore describing motivation recovery. There was a moment when my motivation dipped, but I took a short break, cleared my mind, and returned with renewed focus. Repeat. I returned with renewed focus. Now let's expand it. Sometimes stepping away briefly can make a significant difference. Repeat. Stepping away briefly. Break management vocabulary is common in modern work conversations. Now we transition into describing creative thinking. I spent part of my day generating new ideas, exploring possibilities, and mapping out future plans. Repeat. Exploring possibilities. Now deeper creative reflection. Creative work requires patience, but it's incredibly fulfilling when ideas start taking shape. Repeat. When ideas start taking shape. Now let's move into describing routine comfort. There's something reassuring about following a familiar routine. It creates stability in an otherwise unpredictable day. Repeat. It creates stability. Now contrast with change. However, I also appreciate moments that break the routine because they bring freshness into my day. Repeat. They bring freshness into my day. Balanced language enhances fluency. Let's now explore describing personal care after a long day. After everything was done, I made sure to prioritize self-care. I prepared a relaxing meal, listened to calming music, and allowed myself to unwind. Repeat. I made sure to prioritize self-care. Now emotional reflection. It's essential to recharge both physically and mentally. Repeat. To recharge both physically and mentally. Now let's move into describing late-night thoughts. Late at night, my mind often replays the day's events, analyzing what went well and what could improve. Repeat. My mind often replays the day's events. Now, philosophical extension. These quiet reflections help me grow gradually. Repeat. They help me grow gradually. Now, let's practice a long, spontaneous, storytelling response. Listen first. One of the most meaningful parts of my day was realizing how much progress I've made recently. Even though challenges still arise, I feel more capable of handling them, and that realization motivates me to keep moving forward. Repeat key lines. I feel more capable of handling them. That realization motivates me. Now your turn. Speak aloud. One meaningful moment today was, it made me realize, and because of that, take your time. Now we integrate advanced conversational fillers, because fluent speakers use soft fillers to think while speaking. Phrases like, to be honest, come to think of it, now that I reflect on it, practice aloud, now that I reflect on it, now embed it into a response, now that I reflect on it. The most valuable part of my day wasn't the productivity, but the lessons I learned along the way. Repeat. The lessons I learned along the way. Beautiful, reflective fluency. As we continue ahead, we will begin practicing real-time dialogue simulations, deeper emotional storytelling, and extended conversational layering, ensuring that you can not only describe your day, but sustain meaningful, engaging English conversations with confidence and spontaneity. As we continue strengthening your advanced conversational ability, we now move into extended real-life dialogue simulation. This stage is extremely important because true fluency is not built in isolation. It develops through interaction, through responding, reacting, clarifying, and elaborating in real time. So in this phase, I want you to imagine that you are actively engaged in conversations throughout your day, not just describing events, but exchanging thoughts, feelings, and perspectives naturally. Let's begin with a common everyday interaction. A colleague asking about your workload, they ask, "You look busy today. How's everything going?" An intermediate response might be, "Yes, I'm busy." But an advanced conversational response sounds like this: "I've been juggling quite a few responsibilities today. It's been demanding, but I'm managing to stay organized and focused." Repeat after me. I've been juggling quite a few responsibilities today. Now extend the conversation. It helps that I've prioritized my tasks carefully, so I know exactly what needs my attention first. Repeat. I've prioritized my tasks carefully. Now imagine they respond. That sounds intense. You reply, "It has been, but I'm learning to handle pressure more effectively than before." Repeat. I'm learning to handle pressure more effectively. Notice how this expresses growth, not just stress. Let's move into another conversational scenario. Discussing your morning. Someone asks, "How did your day start?" You respond, "My morning started on a slightly chaotic note. I overslept and had to rush through my routine. But once I settled in, things became more structured." Repeat. My morning started on a slightly chaotic note. Now, reflective follow-up. It taught me the importance of preparing the night before. Repeat. The importance of preparing the night before. Now let's explore a lunchtime conversation. A friend asks, "Did you get a proper break today?" You reply, "I did manage to step away for a while. I had lunch without distractions, which helped me reset mentally." Repeat. Which helped me reset mentally. Now extend naturally. Short breaks like that make a noticeable difference in productivity. Repeat. Make a noticeable difference. Now let's move into describing unexpected stress in dialogue form. Someone asks, "Did anything challenging happen today?" You respond, "Yes, There was an unexpected issue that required immediate attention. It disrupted my schedule, but I adapted quickly. Repeat. I adapted quickly. Now, emotional reflection. It was stressful in the moment, but satisfying once resolved. Repeat. Satisfying once resolved. This dual emotion response is very natural. Now, let's simulate an evening conversation with a friend. They ask, "So how are you feeling now after such a long day?" You respond, "I feel a mix of exhaustion and accomplishment. Physically tired, but mentally fulfilled." Repeat. Physically tired, but mentally fulfilled. Now extend. It's the kind of tiredness that feels earned. Repeat. The kind of tiredness that feels earned. That phrase sounds deeply natural. Let's continue the evening dialogue. They ask, "What are you planning to do tonight?" You reply, "I'm planning to keep things simple tonight. Maybe watch something light, or just unwind quietly." Repeat. Keep things simple tonight. Now, emotional extension. I think I've earned a bit of downtime after today's pace. Repeat. I've earned a bit of downtime. Now let's practice describing motivation in dialogue. Someone asks, "What keeps you motivated on busy days?" You respond, "I remind myself why I started, and that long-term progress matters more than temporary discomfort." Repeat. Long-term progress matters. Now extend. That perspective helps me stay consistent. Repeat. Helps me stay consistent. Now, let's move into describing personal wins. A friend asks, "Did anything positive happen today?" You respond, "Yes, I completed a task that I had been postponing for weeks, and it felt incredibly rewarding." Repeat. It felt incredibly rewarding. Now reflective addition. It lifted a mental burden I didn't even realize I was carrying. Repeat. A mental burden I didn't even realize. That phrase is very advanced emotionally. Now let's practice describing learning conversations. Someone asks, "Did you learn anything new today?" You respond, "Yes, I learned that pacing myself makes a huge difference. When I rush, I feel overwhelmed, but when I slow down, I work more efficiently." Repeat. When I slow down, I work more efficiently. Now, philosophical extension. It's a lesson I want to apply more consistently. Repeat. Apply more consistently. Now let's explore supportive conversational responses, because fluency includes listening and reacting. If someone tells you, "I had a stressful day," you might respond, "That sounds exhausting. I hope you get some time to relax tonight." Repeat. That sounds exhausting. Now, empathy extension. "You handled it well, though. That shows resilience." Repeat. That shows resilience. Now let's simulate a full conversational exchange. Listen first. Person A says, "How would you describe your day in one word?" You respond, "If I had to choose one word, I'd say productive, but it was definitely challenging too." Repeat. Productive, but challenging. They ask, "Would you change anything about it?" You reply, "I would probably manage my time more carefully, so I wouldn't feel as rushed." Repeat. Manage my time more carefully. They ask, "What's your plan for tomorrow?" You respond, "I plan to start the day more calmly, with clearer priorities." Repeat. With clearer priorities. Now let's move into reflective night dialogue. Someone asks, "Do you ever think about your day before sleeping?" You respond, "Yes, I often replay conversations and decisions in my mind, reflecting on what I did well and what I could improve. Repeat. I often replay conversations. Now, emotional depth. These reflections help me grow gradually over time. Repeat. Help me grow gradually. Now, let's integrate extended storytelling dialogue. If someone asks, "What stood out the most today?" you might say, "What stood out the most was how resilient I felt. Even when things became overwhelming, I stayed composed and solution-focused." Repeat. I stayed composed and solution-focused. Now, reflective extension. That realization gave me a sense of inner confidence. Repeat. A sense of inner confidence. Now practice your own spoken reflection aloud. One moment that stood out today was, "It made me feel," and because of that, speak slowly, naturally. As we move forward, we will begin deepening emotional storytelling, expressive vocabulary layering, and long-form narrative fluency, allowing you to speak not just conversationally, but meaningfully, with depth, clarity, and authentic advanced expression. As your conversational range continues to grow, we now enter a deeper layer of fluency development, emotional storytelling, and experiential narration. This stage is where your English begins to sound truly advanced, because you are no longer just exchanging information. You are sharing experiences in a way that allows the listener to feel what you felt. Let's begin by exploring how to describe emotionally significant moments from your day. Instead of saying, "I felt happy today," you could express, "There was a moment today when I felt genuinely content." It wasn't anything dramatic, just a quiet realization that things were moving in the right direction. Repeat after me. A quiet realization that things were moving in the right direction. Now let's deepen the emotional texture. It's those subtle moments of peace that often mean the most. Repeat. Subtle moments of peace. Now let's explore describing pride. Instead of saying, "I was proud of myself," try, "I felt a deep sense of pride in how I handled certain challenges today, especially the ones that tested my patience." Repeat. A deep sense of pride. Now, reflective extension. It reminded me how much I've grown over time. Repeat. How much I've grown over time. Growth reflection language signals advanced fluency. Let's now practice describing emotionally difficult moments. Instead of saying, "I was stressed," you could say, "There was a period during the day when I felt emotionally stretched, as though too many demands were pulling my attention at once." Repeat. Emotionally stretched. Now, resilience follow-up. But I paused, gathered my thoughts, and approached everything more calmly. Repeat. I gathered my thoughts. Now let's move into describing moments of gratitude. Amid all the busyness, I found myself feeling grateful for small things, a supportive message, a productive meeting, even a quiet cup of coffee. Repeat. I found myself feeling grateful for small things. Now, philosophical extension. These moments grounded me when the day felt overwhelming. Repeat. They grounded me. Now let's explore describing connection with others. One meaningful part of my day was a heartfelt conversation I had. It reminded me how powerful genuine connection can be. Repeat. A heartfelt conversation. Now, emotional reflection. It left me feeling understood and supported. Repeat. Feeling understood and supported. Now, let's practice describing reflective solitude. In the evening, I spent some time alone, not out of loneliness, but out of a need to reconnect with myself. Repeat. A need to reconnect with myself. Now extension. Solitude sometimes provides clarity that noise cannot. Repeat. Provides clarity. Now we move into storytelling pacing, describing how the day emotionally unfolded. My day began with tension, gradually shifted into productivity, and ended in calm reflection. Repeat. Ended in calm reflection. Now extend it. It felt like an emotional journey as much as a practical one. Repeat. An emotional journey. Now let's explore describing internal dialogue. There were moments when I had to encourage myself internally, reminding myself that challenges are temporary. Repeat. I had to encourage myself internally. Now, motivational extension. That inner dialogue helped me push forward. Repeat. That inner dialogue helped me. Now let's practice. Describing unexpected joy. An unexpected highlight of my day was receiving kind words from someone I respect. It lifted my spirits instantly. Repeat. It lifted my spirits instantly. Now emotional layering. Encouragement has a lasting impact, far beyond the moment it's given. Repeat. A lasting impact. Now, let's explore describing emotional contrast. There were moments of stress, but they were balanced by moments of calm, which kept me emotionally steady. Repeat. They kept me emotionally steady. Now, reflective expansion. It taught me that balance is essential for well-being. Repeat. Balance is essential. Now, let's move into describing evening emotional release. As the evening settled in, I felt the tension of the day slowly dissolve, replaced by a quiet sense of relief. Repeat. A quiet sense of relief. Now, poetic extension. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath all day. Repeat. Exhaling after holding my breath. Now let's practice describing meaningful silence. There was a peaceful silence in the night, the kind that allows your thoughts to settle. Repeat. That allows your thoughts to settle. Now reflective closure. In that silence, I felt deeply present. Repeat. Deeply present. Now we move into long-form emotional storytelling. Listen first. Looking back, today wasn't just about tasks and responsibilities. It was about resilience, patience, growth, and quiet victories that only I could truly understand. Repeat with me. Quiet victories that only I could understand. Now your turn to reflect aloud. Today taught me. One feeling that stayed with me was, and because of that, take your time, speak naturally. Now let's expand into emotional future reflection. As I prepare for tomorrow, I carry forward the lessons and strength I gained today. Repeat. I carry forward the lessons. Now, hopeful extension. I step into the next day more aware, more prepared, and more confident. Repeat. More aware, more prepared. This forward-looking emotional fluency completes daily storytelling. As we continue toward the final phase of this session, we will integrate everything you've practiced: vocabulary, idioms, storytelling, emotional depth, and dialogue into long, uninterrupted conversational flows, preparing you to speak about your day in English like a truly advanced fluent speaker. As we move into this next phase of your fluency journey, we begin integrating everything you've practiced so far into extended, uninterrupted conversational flow. This is where vocabulary, emotional expression, idioms, storytelling, and spontaneous thinking all merge into one natural rhythm. And this rhythm is what makes an advanced English speaker sound confident, expressive, and authentic. So now, instead of practicing isolated sentences, we will build longer narrative responses that mirror real-life conversations, the kind you would have when speaking to a friend, a colleague, or even reflecting aloud about your day. Let's begin with a full-day narrative expansion. Listen first, without repeating, just absorb the flow. Today felt like one of those days that tested both my patience and my resilience. I started the morning slightly rushed, after oversleeping, which immediately put me in a reactive mindset. But once I arrived at work and began organizing my priorities, I slowly regained control over my schedule. The afternoon was intense, filled with responsibilities that demanded my full attention. Yet there was a quiet satisfaction in staying focused, despite the pressure. By evening, I could finally exhale, knowing that I had navigated the day with determination. Now let's practice for some repetition. Tested both my patience and my resilience. I slowly regained control over my schedule. There was a quiet satisfaction in staying focused. Repeat each slowly. Allow the phrasing to settle naturally. Now let's build another extended narrative with a different emotional tone. Today unfolded more gently than I expected. My morning began calmly, giving me space to think clearly before stepping into my responsibilities. Throughout the afternoon, I worked steadily, without feeling overwhelmed, and that consistency helped me maintain a positive mindset. By the time evening arrived, I felt balanced, both mentally and emotionally, as though the day had flowed in harmony rather than pressure. Repeat with me. Today unfolded more gently. I worked steadily without feeling overwhelmed. The day had flowed in harmony. Now it's your turn to construct a full narrative aloud. My day began. As the afternoon progressed, by evening, and overall, I felt. Speak slowly. Let your thoughts organize themselves in English. Now let's deepen storytelling by adding sensory detail, because advanced speakers often describe not only events, but atmosphere. For example, the office atmosphere today felt unusually intense. Conversations were shorter, footsteps quicker, and everyone seemed immersed in their own deadlines. Repeat. Everyone seemed immersed in their own deadlines. Now contrast with calm atmosphere. In the evening, the environment shifted completely. The quietness felt comforting, almost therapeutic. Repeat. Almost therapeutic. Sensory description strengthens narrative fluency. Now let's move into describing mental transitions during the day. There was a moment in the afternoon when I felt my focus slipping, but I paused, took a breath, and recalibrated my thoughts. Repeat. I recalibrated my thoughts. Now, resilience extension. That brief pause made a significant difference in my productivity. Repeat. Made a significant difference. Now let's explore describing emotional balance. Even though the day had stressful moments, they were balanced by small victories that kept my motivation alive. Repeat. Small victories that kept my motivation alive. Now, reflective extension. It reminded me that progress often happens quietly. Repeat. Progress often happens quietly. Now let's move into advanced conversational comparisons. Compared to last week, I felt far more in control of my schedule today. Repeat. Far more in control. Now, future projection. I hope to carry this momentum into the coming days. Repeat. Carry this momentum. Momentum vocabulary signals forward fluency. Thinking. Let's now explore describing decision-making turning points. There was a point where I had to decide whether to keep pushing or step back briefly. I chose to pause, and it restored my clarity. Repeat. It restored my clarity. Now, philosophical reflection. Sometimes stepping back is the most productive step forward. Repeat. The most productive step forward. Now, let's integrate a long, reflective storytelling practice with me. Listen first. As I reflect on the day, I realize that productivity wasn't the only achievement. Emotional balance, patience, and adaptability were equally important victories. These are the quiet strengths that shape long-term growth. Repeat key lines: emotional balance, patience, and adaptability. Quiet strengths that shape growth. Now it's your turn. Speak aloud. As I reflect on the day, one quiet strength I noticed was, and that helped me. Take your time. Now let's practice describing social interactions within long storytelling. One conversation today stood out to me. It began casually, but gradually turned meaningful, reminding me how powerful genuine dialogue can be. Repeat. Gradually turned meaningful. Now, emotional extension. It left a lasting impression on my thoughts. Repeat. A lasting impression. Now let's move into describing closure of the day. As the day came to an end, I felt a calm sense of closure, as though everything had settled into place. Repeat. A calm sense of closure. Now, poetic extension. It felt like closing a chapter, preparing quietly for the next. Repeat. Preparing quietly for the next. Now let's practice one final extended narrative for this phase. If I were to describe today in its entirety, I'd say it was a blend of challenge and growth, moments of pressure, intertwined with moments of clarity, and through it all, a steady sense of forward movement. Repeat with me. A blend of challenge and growth, a steady sense of forward movement. Now speak your own closing reflection aloud. If I were to describe today, I would say, because allow your fluency to flow without interruption. As we move into the final stretch of this session, we will unify everything you've practiced into long-form, uninterrupted speech, ensuring you can speak about your day with depth, structure, emotional intelligence, and advanced conversational confidence. As we enter the final phase of your extended conversation practice, this is where everything you have built so far begins to merge into one seamless expressive ability: vocabulary, idioms, emotional awareness, narrative structure, spontaneous thinking, and reflective depth, all working together to help you communicate your daily experiences with advanced fluency. At this stage, your focus is no longer on forming individual sentences, but on sustaining meaningful, uninterrupted speech, the kind of speech that flows naturally when someone asks you about your day, your thoughts, or your experiences. So let's begin this closing conversational immersion by stepping fully into long-form narration, where you speak as if you are sharing your day with someone who is genuinely listening. Imagine beginning your reflection like this. Today felt like a journey in itself, not just a sequence of tasks, but a series of emotional and mental transitions that shaped how I moved through the hours. Repeat slowly. A series of emotional and mental transitions. Now continue the narrative. My morning began with a sense of urgency. I woke up feeling slightly behind schedule, and that initial rush carried into the early part of my day. Repeat. That initial rush carried into the early part of my day. Now expand naturally. However, once I settled into my responsibilities, I began to regain my focus, organizing my thoughts and pacing myself more intentionally. Repeat. I began to regain my focus. Notice how contrast words like however help guide your narrative smoothly. Now continue the storytelling progression. As the afternoon unfolded, the intensity of my workload increased. I found myself navigating multiple priorities, shifting attention where it was most needed. Repeat. Navigating multiple priorities. Now emotional reflection. Although it demanded a lot of energy, it also strengthened my resilience. Repeat. It strengthened my resilience. Now extend into productivity reflection. There's a certain satisfaction that comes from staying composed under pressure, knowing that you didn't allow stress to overpower your focus. Repeat. Staying composed under pressure. Now let's move toward evening transition. By the time evening arrived, I could feel the weight of the day slowly easing. Responsibilities completed, conversations concluded, and expectations met. Repeat. The weight of the day slowly easing. Now emotional closure. It brought with it a quiet sense of accomplishment, subtle, yet deeply reassuring. Repeat. A quiet sense of accomplishment. Now deepen reflective fluency. I realized that not every victory needs to be loud. Sometimes progress is measured in inner stability rather than external results. Repeat. Progress is measured in inner stability. Now let's continue building extended, uninterrupted narration. As night settled in, I allowed myself to slow down completely, stepping away from structured thinking and simply existing in the calmness of the moment. Repeat. Stepping away from structured thinking. Now emotional introspection. In that stillness, I could process the day more clearly, recognizing both my strengths and the areas where I continue to grow. Repeat. Recognizing both my strengths. Now philosophical extension. Growth rarely happens in comfort, and days like this remind me of that truth. Repeat. Days like this remind me. Now let's expand into future-facing reflection. As I prepare mentally for tomorrow, I carry forward not just completed tasks, but learned lessons, renewed patience, and strengthened self-awareness. Repeat. Renewed patience and strengthened self-awareness. Now extend further. I step into the next day slightly wiser, slightly calmer, and slightly more confident in my ability to handle whatever comes. Repeat. Slightly wiser, slightly calmer. Now let's build one final uninterrupted storytelling practice with me. Listen first. If I had to describe the essence of today, I would say it was a quiet testament to endurance, a reminder that even ordinary days hold opportunities for growth, reflection, and self-discovery. It wasn't perfect, but it was meaningful, and sometimes, meaningful is more valuable than perfect. Repeat with me. A quiet testament to endurance. Opportunities for growth and reflection. Meaningful is more valuable than perfect. Now speak your own closing narrative aloud, slowly, freely, without pressure. Today was, it challenged me by, it taught me, and it prepared me for. Allow your thoughts to form naturally in English. This uninterrupted reflection is where advanced fluency truly solidifies. Continue extending your speech. One realization I carry forward is, one strength I noticed in myself was, and one intention I set for tomorrow is. This is the level of expressive clarity that transforms everyday English into advanced communication. As you continue practicing this style of narration regularly, describing your day, your thoughts, your emotions, and your reflections, you gradually train your mind to operate in English rather than translate into it. And that shift is what ultimately shapes you into a naturally fluent speaker. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I truly hope this conversation practice helped you feel more confident, more expressive, and more connected to your English speaking journey. Remember, fluency is not built in a single day. It grows every time you speak, reflect, and practice describing your real life in English. So keep talking about your day, keep expanding your thoughts, and keep challenging yourself to use richer vocabulary and deeper expression. If you found this session helpful, don't forget to stay connected with our daily lessons and continue practicing with me regularly. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking English with confidence.